Hello, I'm Kelda Yoon. 5 school boards and 2 private schools in the province are joining lawsuits against the world's biggest social media companies. They are following the lead of several other school boards, including the TDSB and its Catholic counterpart, who filed lawsuits against Meta, Snapchat, and TikTok back in March. Dale Manukduk has the latest.
It's schools versus social media. The school boards are claiming tech giants Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and Snapchat created and marketed addictive products to children which impact educational outcomes.
A lot of our suspensions and expulsions could be, our evidence for those always came back to the use of social media and bullying through that. We saw, a rise of addictions through the social media with our kids not being able to get off their phones because of the platform they were using.
In March, the Toronto school boards and 2 others all filed separate lawsuits. Joining them with their own legal action are the Catholic boards in Peel, York Region, and Ottawa, plus the public boards in Trillium, Lakeland, and Niagara, as well as 2 GTA private schools. The total damages sought is over $7 billion.
Really, at the base of it is that students and their ability to learn and their behavior and their ability to regulate their behavior in the school setting has been fundamentally altered by these products. What
do the students at this Markham Catholic school think of the lawsuit?
I think it's the right thing to do. A lot of my friends get distracted really easily. Not me, though.
When it's time to actually work, everybody usually just puts their phone down or something. Or we would have those little phone cubbies.
Give me an idea of what these cell phone policies are like in the school. Are they enforced?
Honestly, not really. Most teachers don't even care. When they're teaching a lesson, they're they don't even say anything, and most people are just on their phone.
Tell me about your social media or cell phone habits. How often are you on it?
Almost all the time. Every second of the day, almost, basically.
The province isn't in favor of the legal action, touting limitations it's already put in place.
Instead of large litigation, they ought to be focused on actually countering the threats online, taking action immediately. So the government's preference is to act, which is why we brought forth a comprehensive plan that will restrict cell phones, ban social media, and get our schools back to basics.
The Premier also blasted the lawsuits when they were first launched.
What are they spending on lawyer fees?
It's not just that students are preoccupied in the classroom and not paying attention to their teachers. It's that they're preoccupied at home. They're preoccupied in between classes.
This associate professor says the provincial government is missing the larger picture, that the impact of social media goes way beyond the classroom and the ability to learn.
Around 2012 to 2015, we started seeing an increase in rates of depression and anxiety among adolescents, teenagers. We also started to see increases in reports of anxiety, suicidal ideation, depression.
The social media companies are defending their products. The allegations have yet to be proven in court, and there is no set date for when they will be heard. Dale Manukduk, CBC News, Markham.
A provincial politician is highlighting a big problem with a high school that leaks and floods every time it rains. The NDP MPP says she saw it for herself when she visited Humberside Collegiate this week. Today, she brought up the issue up in legislature. Queen's Park reporter Lorena Redekop has more on the fight over who should be fixing it.
The NDP's Butila Carpoche visited Humberside Collegiate on Monday and couldn't believe what she saw. Flooded hallways and stairwells, buckets, saying the principal told her when it rains, 20 different spots need to be checked for flooding. Students say it's the same thing every rainstorm.
The basement floods, the stairwells flood, the auditorium floods.
We get leaks in the auditorium, on the stage, and in the sound and lighting booth, and then the basement kind of floods from the bottom up through the drains.
Classes in the basement get shut down for the day. You gotta miss class sometimes if they can't find another classroom.
I love this school, man. They need to fix it up.
That's what Carpoche called on the education minister to do.
Go to the school and fix it. You are the Minister of Education. The buck stops with you. Fix it!
The minister says the problem is the Toronto District School Board. Boards receive money from his ministry.
You should stand up to the school board, who is literally sitting on $315 million of maintenance funding. What do you not understand about this problem?
The board disputes that it's not spending its maintenance funding, saying repair projects can take up to 2 years to plan before finishing the work. Writing in a statement, there is approximately $380 million that has been assigned to projects but not yet spent. And it says it's spending more than ever on fixing up schools. Despite this record spending, our maintenance and repair backlog remains at more than $4 billion. Given this flooding, one NDP MPP reposted her video from a committee hearing last year, trying to get a province-wide figure on the repair backlog.
And I'm looking for a number, not a sermon.
I'm going to provide an answer on what we do with respect to our capital backlog.
But I'm looking for the number.
As for that flooding at Humberside Collegiate, the school board said facilities staff were on site investigating this week's leak and say one stairwell remains closed, though never indicated it's a recurring issue. Lorenda Redicomp, CBC News, Toronto.
For weeks now, a lift bridge that brings large amounts of vehicle traffic into and out of the Portlands has been out of service, needing major repairs. In the meantime, a smaller nearby bridge is being pressed into service, accommodating the hundreds of vehicles passing through the area every day. But as Chris Glover shows us, this has been creating frustration and safety concerns for people who work in the area.
People are dealing with a mess here on Unwin Avenue down in the Portlands. This tiny one-lane bridge is being forced to take all of those construction trucks and vehicles. From the sky, you really get a chance to see how potentially dangerous this all is, with vehicles being forced to line up on either side, never knowing exactly whose turn it is next, with lights or with signals. And right now, this is the only operational bridge in the area, because there is another one down at the south end of Cherry Street, but it is broken. Stuck in the up position, no one has been able to get through here since April 22nd. And so as a result of the bridge being inoperable, people can't use it to get to Cherry Beach. Instead, they have to travel much farther to the east and take Leslie down to Unwin to use that smaller bridge. Here's one lady describing her experience trying to navigate all this.
There's still nobody at the single lane bridge, and that part is like you're just taking your life in your hands. You're hoping as a little car that you can make it across before a dump truck comes along and doesn't realize you're there.
The film industry was actually the first to complain about the impact of the broken bridge, especially since right now Oscar-winning director Guillermo del Toro is here shooting Frankenstein, but a spokesperson for Cinespace says they're doing what they can to make the best of a bad situation.
Everybody's really working on it to make it the best experience possible. One of the greatest films, probably one of the greatest films being made in the world right now is being made at our studios. So we want to make sure that the talent, the hundreds of talented people that are working on this keep loving coming to work every day.
Don't make Guillermo mad. He loves Toronto.
We do not want to make Guillermo mad.
Ports Toronto owns this bridge and says it just secured a much needed part, but still there's no timeline for when it'll be operational again.
They're securing the crane operators, securing the machine shop. So all that has taken place over the last few weeks, and now everything should be in place. We'll have a final schedule from the contractor and in the next day or two, and then we'll be able to inform everybody as to when exactly the bridge will be kind of lowered.
Until that other bridge is operational, this little one is all that we have. And I spoke with the councillor for this area, Paula Fletcher. She said that the city has now paid for an off-duty police officer to come down here and manage things. And overnight, for 2 nights, they're going to be reinforcing this bridge to take all of this extra weight. And I asked Paula Fletcher, whose fault is all of this? Who dropped the ball here?
Well, we have a 92-year-old bridge over a shipping channel that there must be a lift bridge, but it's 92 years old. And when you run out of a part, you can't just go up the street to Canadian Tire. It is fabricated somewhere in Europe.
Right now, city staff is also looking into possibly putting lights or signals here, and Paula Fletcher says that they're looking to try to make this safer, as this is now the only access point to Cherry Beach. Chris Glover, CBC News, Toronto.
Has struck a tentative revenue sharing deal with the agency that runs its parking lots. The agreement with the Toronto Parking Authority avoids possible cuts to popular programs like Bike Share. Municipal Affairs reporter Sean Jeffords has the details.
Toronto's bike share system has turned into one of the best ways to get around our congested streets, and millions in cuts to the program appear to have been averted. That's thanks to a new revenue sharing agreement between the city and the Toronto Parking Authority, which runs bike share.
So it was a matter of sitting down and saying, we're not trying to destroy you. We're very proud of the fact that we're one of the few cities that didn't fire sell off their parking authority. We want you to succeed, but let's be fair about the revenue piece.
The TPA pays the city 85% of its annual profits, tens of millions of dollars, and it wants to keep more. It warned that if it couldn't do that, it would defer $14 million in spending on bike share and its electric vehicle charging station rollout.
There's some cool apps.
This councillor and TPA board member says the city has added responsibilities to the agency's plate.
To have the additional requirement of electric vehicle charging infrastructure, which is very expensive, a bike share network that has become quite expensive, very popular, expansive in its rollout, but there's a lot of costs associated with that. You know, and the requirement to provide that dividend at 85%, that's onerous.
The TPA board approved the tentative deal this week. Talks were tense, with the agency calling the cost-sharing agreement a punitive tax and warning of cuts. But this councillor says TPA's opening bargaining position may have stood in the way of a deal.
I think there was some thinking that perhaps a dividend wasn't required, or perhaps it's time to get out of the dividend. But this is an agency solely of the City of Toronto, no other shareholder, and a dividend has always been in there.
Super happy that we've been able
This
to
TPA executive says the agency is happy with the tentative deal.
So we looked at a myriad of different options. We looked at different income share splits. We looked at potentially pausing the contribution that we make to the city on an annual basis. And in the end, we found the sweet spot, which is 75-25 and some direct capital funding on behalf of the city. So we landed in a good spot.
The deal will run 3 years and see the parking authority keep an additional 10% of its revenue. The city will also contribute an additional $48 million to its capital needs. City Council will have the final say on the agreement at a meeting later this month. Sean Jeffords, CBC News, Toronto.
A member of Parliament is speaking out today after her Toronto constituency office was vandalized. Vandals wrote "Rafa is burning" and "Toronto will too" on the window of MP Julie Zerowitz's office. She is calling the words hate speech.
Toronto will burn is a threat. Also, Canada Proud has actually promoted the vandalism on the front of my office as of this morning. That is promoting something. One is it puts my staff, the safety of my staff at risk. It also seems to be promoting this type of behavior.
The Bloor Street office was vandalized early Tuesday morning. Zerowitz says 2 people dressed in black were responsible for the damage. She adds her office has been targeted multiple times by vandals since the Israel-Hamas war began last October. Zerowitz says in addition to being illegal, this type of vandalism impacts office staff. The graffiti has now been cleaned up. Toronto police say their hate crime unit is investigating. The Mississauga election is just under 2 weeks away. As mayoral candidates continue vying for votes on the campaign trail, there's a sizable portion of the population that will be watching from the sidelines, unable to cast a vote. But as Talia Ricci tells us, they're hoping their voices will still be heard.
Lily Sulis-Tinisi has lived and worked in Mississauga for 5 years, but because she's not a Canadian citizen, she can't vote in the upcoming election.
What I feel personally, I don't have any right about, what is happening about the cities, about whatever in the government.
According to the city, more than 100,000 people in Mississauga, about 16% of the population, are not Canadian citizens. Those voices will be missing from the ballots next month, but that doesn't mean they don't have anything to say about their city.
We come with so little money that we start our life here from scratch pretty much. But what can we do? We just have to work harder. We have 2-3 jobs, and then I work sometimes 7 days a week, to just be able to provide for the rent and the grocery. We don't have anything left.
The issues newcomers face echo what others across the city have been highlighting too: affordability, housing, and transit.
It's important to understand the newcomer needs so that we have a process of population growth that can ensure our communities are sustained.
Organizations that work closely with newcomers say it isn't a lack of interest that fails to engage the population, but more so a lack of time and information.
Metamorphosis has been working very hard at ensuring that we're engaging people in that civic process and giving them the ability to access the mayoral race. The ways in which we will enable people to access the information needs to be very broad so that we can attract the largest audience possible.
Language is a key barrier, and knowing how the system is structured is another piece that requires some orientation.
Several nonprofits in Peel Region have been pushing for more funding to improve their services and make them more accessible. They say that will also benefit the newcomer population.
Newcomers contribute to our local community a great amount. They have to keep that population in mind. A, they're going to be future citizens and voters. B, they're residents here and are paying taxes. So they are contributing to how the city gets built.
They may not have the time to come to a debate, but their concerns are very valid, or we may lose that talent to other regions.
That's something Lily has been considering. By the time she is able to vote, it's possible she will have made the move to somewhere more affordable.
I meant to come here to settle. Now I have my son here. I would like to provide, a good life for my children here.
Residents who are eligible to vote will have the chance to cast a ballot in the advance polls this weekend. Election day is June 10th. Talia Ricci, CBC News, Mississauga.
Toronto Public Health is sounding the alarm after 523 people died of opioid toxicity last year.
Of course, these are all preventable because we know that if people come into supervised consumption sites or they're around people who have naloxone on hand, we can reverse these overdoses and prevent people from dying.
New data released today reveals that over 200 people who died from opioids last year were discovered alone. According to TBH, opioid deaths hit a record number during the COVID-19 pandemic and have increased 74% since 2019. Welcome back. The world's #1 ranked golfer has been cleared of all charges less than 2 weeks after being arrested in Louisville, Kentucky. Scottie Scheffler was taken into custody after attempting to drive around a fatal crash site while heading to the second round of the PGA Championship. He faced multiple accusations, including the alleged assault of a police officer. While the prosecutor defended the officer's actions, he says Scheffler did not commit any crimes. Scheffler will not be playing in the Canadian Open, which tees off tomorrow morning at the Hamilton Golf and Country Club, but there are plenty of stars, including a 24-year-old Mississauga native playing in only his second PGA Tour event. Matthew Anderson is hoping to take advantage of a huge opportunity. Greg Ross has his story.
Signing autographs.
Good luck this weekend.
Thank you.
Teeing off alongside some of the top players on tour. And it's all happening just a short drive across the highway from his childhood home in Mississauga.
As a young kid, just thinking, man, this would be so cool. This is what I want to do. And kind of to be this close, and here this week, super cool.
This is actually not the first time Matthew Anderson has played in the Canadian Open. In fact, he was here in Hamilton the last time this course hosted it back in 2019. He was only 19 years old at the time and won a regional qualifier to get in. He says he was somewhat starstruck back then.
It was definitely a little bit of a shock, I guess. It's a PGA Tour event. You watch these guys on TV, and all of a sudden you're in it. So I think it kind of hit me on Thursday, and I was, no nerves I've experienced like that before at that point.
And those nerves impacted his play early on, according to his longtime coach.
Nervous for sure. I mean, we started double and then bogey. At that point, it was more, let's just get as much experience as we can. Enjoy it, have fun. It wasn't like any super big goals or anything.
Anderson missed the cut in 2019, but he's come a long way in the past 5 years, now playing as a pro on the PGA Tour Americas, where he has 3 top 3 finishes this year, including his first ever pro victory, which he won with this putt.
Yeah! Woo! This is what I dream of, 8 feet to win a golf tournament. I was definitely just kind of relishing this moment. Made a great stroke, and it caught the left edge and just kind of let it all out.
That putt was a big reason he earned an exemption to play here this week, and he says it was also a huge confidence booster.
I know I have the ability to contend. I know I have the ability to like make the cut and do well and compete.
Definitely a different guy. He's more comfortable with himself, with his spot in among the best players in the world.
Anderson says he expects there will be some nerves again this week, but he says he plans to enjoy the moment and realize the opportunity he has.
This is the PGA Tour event that every Canadian looks forward to playing.
Greg Ross, CBC News, Hamilton.
It was a gorgeous sunny day today. Victor Palo joins us now with the first check on the forecast. And Victor, after a couple days of gloomy weather, this is definitely a welcome shift.
Toronto, how about that weather we've been receiving today? No special weather statements, no watches, and no warnings. It's been nothing but beautiful sunshine as we wrap up this day, mixed in with seasonal temperatures. Now, as you do look ahead as to what else we'll be expecting, we have crisp, cool nights ahead, mixed in with a streak of sunny days. Now, we're also going to take a quick peek ahead into our weekend as to what we're going to be expecting for the weather, so you can make your better plans ahead in advance. Now, your average temperatures for today, May 29th, we do know our average high is 21.6, and we also know our average low is 10.2. So now referred to seasonal temperatures, these are the numbers which I'm speaking about. Now, taking a look at our daytime high for today, it was a seasonal day with 19 degrees being the high. And if you take a look from Windsor all the way to Ottawa, it looks like the majority of southern Ontario are experiencing seasonal temperatures, which is a nice change because around that long weekend, we had a lot of above seasonal temperatures. Now, once we get rid of all that rain over there and it's all out the way, what are we going to be experiencing? Well, it's going to be a high pressure system, and the high pressure system means there is no clouds anywhere, there's no precipitation anywhere. It's going to be nothing but seasonal temperatures, where the temperatures are going to be in the daytime closer to the 20s and the lows are going to be closer to the 10s. Now, as we do take a peek, what else is in store for Thursday into Friday? Again, a continuation of that high pressure system. As you do take a look as your Friday morning begins, it's going to be nothing but, well, clear skies again. As you do see over in northwestern Ontario, a bit of precipitation is reaching in, but it's not going to hit Toronto until about later into your Saturday for a brief scattered showers. Nothing too big. Now, overnight, it's going to be pretty chilly, 8 degrees, still within that window of seasonal temperatures. As you look ahead at our 3 and 5 day forecast, well, we see the continuation of those seasonal temperatures I've been speaking about. Mixed in with that high pressure system, you can see it's going to be sunny days and cool, crisp nights where you can see those stars and the moon. As you do take a look at the weekend, well, the warmer weather continues. And it's also going to be a great time to make plans to be outdoors. Hopefully, have yourselves a great night, and over to you.
Thanks, Victor. Welcome back. A trial is underway in Brampton for 3 men accused in a 2021 shooting at a Mississauga restaurant that left 1 young man dead and almost his entire family injured. The 3 have been charged with first-degree murder and 5 counts of attempted murder. Today, the best friend of the victim told the jury that his friend had walked away from working with one of the accused and had sent texts calling the accused evil less than 2 months before he was killed. Olivia Bowden has more.
In court, testimony was given by Amar Hashmi, who says that he's the best friend of the victim, Naeem Akal. Hashmi says that he, Akal, and all 3 of the accused worked at an Amazon warehouse business together, and that Akal left the business shortly before the shooting. On May 29, 2021, Akal was killed at his family's restaurant, Chicken Land. A man entered the restaurant on Glen Erin Drive and the College Way in Mississauga and opened fire at Akal and his family. Akal's mother, father, brother, and a family friend were injured. His sister was shot at but not hurt. Anan Nath, Solomon Raza, and Akash Abbasi are all charged with first-degree murder and multiple counts of attempted murder. The Crown alleges that Abbasi was the mastermind, while Nath was the sole shooter and Raza drove the getaway vehicle. Today, the Crown presented evidence from a group chat called Secret Club that included Hashmi, Akal, Raza, and Nath, but excluded Abbasi. The texts were obtained from Raza's phone and presented into evidence. The Crown pointed the jury to texts where all the men seemed to complain about how Abbasi was running the business. They would import kitchen supplies from China and sell them on Amazon out of this warehouse. Akal texts the chat about his concerns that Abbasi is a scammer in the business called TriLink. He says, "He is trying to befriend me so I come back in the company and tell people, yeah, I'm scamming you." Hashmi tells Akil he spoke to Abbasi about how he's treating Akil. He says, "I told him about how he spoke to you was not right." The jury was also played a phone call between Akil and Abbasi. Hashmi says Akil asked him to record the call on speaker. Akil tells Abbasi he is quitting, and Abbasi yells at him and calls him a loser. In this text to another group chat, Abbasi, whose nickname here is Bazi, says that Naeem is officially out of TriLink due to his treachery. Texts were also presented to the jury where the victim calls Abbasi evil. The Crown has alleged that the shooting occurred because Akil was planning to go to the police about the three men's alleged ties to ISIS. The Crown will be calling more witnesses tomorrow. Olivia Bowden, CBC News, Brampton.
The fate of Donald Trump is now in the hands of a jury. After weeks of testimony in his so-called hush money trial, 7 men and 5 women in New York will now consider whether or not the former president committed a crime. Chris Reyes reports from outside the courtroom.
No more witnesses to take the stand. Closing arguments have been delivered. The judge has given this jury instructions, and now the countdown is on for this historic decision. Could be a verdict, could be a hung jury. We simply don't know. Now, it goes without saying that the stakes are high. After all, Donald Trump is not only a former American president, he is also the presumptive Republican nominee. And of the 4 criminal cases that he's facing, this could be the only one to conclude before this year's November vote. Now, this morning, the judge instructed the jury on details of the case, the legalities of the charges, 34 counts of falsifying business records in connection to hush money payments made to Stormy Daniels and others leading up to the 2016 presidential elections. A couple of notable things from the judge. The jury can't convict on Michael Cohen's testimony alone, the prosecution's star witness, given that Cohen is an accomplice in this case, the judge told the jury. He also implored them to consider fairly all of the evidence presented in the case and reminded them that this is not about how they feel about Donald Trump. Soon as the jury went into deliberations, Trump spoke to the media outside of the courtroom.
Mother Teresa could not beat these charges. These charges are rigged. The whole thing is rigged.
To convict Donald Trump, the jury must find him guilty beyond a reasonable doubt by a unanimous vote. And given that these are felony charges, jail time is on the line, but sentencing will not be up to the jury. The judge will decide that. Chris Reyes, CBC News, New York.
Israeli ground forces are pushing deeper into Rafah. The operation is continuing despite a ruling from the International Court of Justice and growing international pressure. The Israeli government says fighting in the territory will likely continue until the end of the year. The sound of explosions rolled through Rafah, sending a team of paramedics scrambling for cover. And many of the people displaced have moved to the city of Han Yunis to escape the fighting. There are reports of at least 15 Palestinians killed across Gaza from Israeli air raids and shelling. 3 Israeli soldiers were killed during fighting. The IDF says an initial investigation shows they were killed by a blast in a booby-trapped building. The capital of India is in the grips of a blistering heat wave. New Delhi has recorded its hottest day ever, with temperatures topping 52 degrees Celsius. Ishan Garg tells us how people are coping.
The hottest part of the day has now passed, and we've had a brief spell of rain. Despite that, the heat here is excruciating. If you're out on the streets, you sweat non-stop. Buying some cold lemonade from one of these stands is one way to try to cool down. But there's only so much it can do when the peak temperature in the city hits 52 degrees Celsius. Northern India has been in the grip of an intense heat wave for several days now. Multiple states have seen the mercury pass the 50-degree mark. It's led to a spike in hospital admissions, and doctors say the elderly and the most vulnerable are at increased risk of heat stroke and heart problems. The heat is now particularly problematic for India's tens of millions of daily wage earners who don't have the luxury of using air conditioners or going back to well-ventilated homes at night. To make matters worse, Delhi is also facing a water shortage. Officials here say they will penalize those found wasting water. Washing your car with a hose or letting a water tank overflow could attract fines up to $33 Canadian. Experts say the government also needs to pay more attention to the broader issue of climate change.
When you are already reaching a stage in our history where climate is not just a theoretical conference conversation, but it's your day-to-day reality and it affects you immediately here and now, then action should be here and now rather than ambiguous in political manifestos as just vague promises.
A 2023 study from the University of Cambridge says 24,000 people have died due to heat waves in India in the past 3 decades. Climate change is only likely to worsen this crisis. Officials here are now scrambling to figure out a response to the heat wave. Now, the weather officials here say that there could be some respite from the sweltering heat in the next few days, but that may be just a dip of a few degrees from these record-breaking temperatures. Ishan Garg for CBC News, New Delhi.
Baseball is often called a game of numbers. Now, the sport's decades of statistics are getting a major update. Players from the segregation-era Negro Leagues are being included in the official record books. And as Alison Northcott tells us, that's going to shake up the history of the game.
This is a statue of Hall of Famer Josh Gibson. He played 14 seasons in the Negro Leagues when black players were excluded from Major League Baseball. Now, the MLB says that it's correcting a long-time oversight by including statistics from the Negro Leagues into its official records.
Major League Baseball has recognized other rival leagues, which are way back in the 19th century, the American Association of 1882, the Players League of 1890, the Union Association of 1884, the Federal League of 1914-15, but never recognized the Negro Leagues as a significant Major League caliber equivalent.
It means Gibson's now recognized as one of the league's all-time greats, unseating Hall of Famer Ty Cobb as the all-time career leader in batting average and beating out Babe Ruth as the career leader in slugging percentage. Gibson was a power hitter from Buena Vista, Georgia, and died in 1947 at the age of 35. The same year, Jackie Robinson became the first black player in Major League Baseball.
There was a quote always saying that Josh Gibson's the black Babe Ruth. And we always say, no, Babe Ruth is the white Josh Gibson. So now that will really be true.
This comes after years of research that will now see more than 2,000 players' statistics officially enter the record. Major League Baseball's commissioner says the league took on this change to give fans access to the statistics and milestones of those who made the Negro Leagues possible. Alison Northcott, CBC News, Washington.
The Professional Women's Hockey League will crown its first ever champion tonight. Boston is hosting Minnesota in the 5th and deciding game of their series.
Boston, Minnesota, inaugural PWHL Finals. Mueller with a chance here for Boston, and she scores! Alina Mueller, the season-saving goal!
This comes after Boston took Game 4 1-0 in double overtime in Minnesota on Sunday, and it was a dramatic one. The winning Boston goal coming shortly after a disallowed Minnesota goal that would have seen the team crowned Walter Cup champs. All right, let's go back to Victa now with a final check on your forecast. And Victa, how's it looking?
Taking a look at what we're going to be anticipating when we start our day tomorrow, as well as what's going to happen when that day wraps up. Just take a look what the weather is going to be like. Well, as your little ones are getting ready for school tomorrow, it's going to be, 11 degrees. It's going to be a brisk morning, a very brisk start to your day. So you maybe want to layer up a bit, because by the time you get home, it's going to be a continuation of that sun, but it's going to be 19 degrees, which is a nice, warm welcome as you are on the way home. So one thing to note here, you do see almost that 10-degree swing in temperatures. So when you do start the day, you want to make sure you're a little bit layered up. But by the time you get home, it's always nice to be able to take off a sweater or a light jacket. Now, here's what's happening for the rest of the day and as well as the rest of the week as we get rid of that rain and that high pressure system gets to enter the GTA. It's going to last for the majority of your Thursday as well as your Friday as well. As you take a look, your Thursday is going to be very clear. Let's take a step to the side here. It's going to be a very clear Thursday, all across the whole region. And all the way continuation into your morning, into well as your daytime for Friday. Now, Saturday, we're expecting a bit of precipitation precipitation later on in the afternoon, but we'll talk about that later on Friday, maybe even Thursday as well. But as of for right now, taking a look at the next 24, 48 hours, it is going to be clear skies. It's going to be a great time to look at the stars at night. It's also going to be a great time to take a nice walk during the daytime where it's going to be not too warm because we're experiencing seasonal temperatures. Now, nighttime, it's going to be around 8 degrees. We're going to start our day closer to around 11 degrees, as you did see on the previous slide. And a quick look at our 3 and 5 day forecast. Well, the big story here, it's going to be the seasonal temperatures we're going to be under here in the GTA. As you know, 21 degrees is around our average high, and 10 degrees is around our average low. So Thursday is smack dab right in that seasonal part of the day. Now, average high is going to be a little bit higher on Friday, as well as for Saturday and Sunday and Monday. Correction, your daily highs are going to be warmer the closer we get to Monday. But of course, the closer we get to Monday, that's when June is going to start on Saturday. And of course, we all know what happens in June. That's going to be when summer begins. So of course, we're all getting ready to gear up for summer, and the temperatures as well are gearing up for that summer as well. Hope you all have a great night, and over to you.
Thanks so much, Victor. And that is our show for you tonight. Thanks for joining us. There is no late local newscast tonight because of NHL playoffs. We will see you back here tomorrow at 6. Have a great night.